Growing calls for Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to keep Archie and Lily away from Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis at all costs. And what is interesting is that this is coming from Americans. So I'm going to show you why they make that claim in just one moment. Also coming up, Tina Brown, the highly respected royal author, of course, a former editor of Vanity Fair, once friends with Princess Diana, is revealing what Prince William's friends.
Imagine being a child, growing up in one of the most famous families on the planet, having cousins you have never properly met, never played with, never spent a single afternoon with. And the reason, according to royal insiders, is not distance. It is not scheduling. It is not a simple misunderstanding between two brothers that got out of hand. It is a deliberate, calculated, firm decision made by Prince William and Princess Catherine, two of the most thoughtful, most careful parents in the public eye, that Archie and Lilibet Sussex will not be allowed into the lives of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Not now, not casually. Not without serious thought and serious concern about what that interaction might actually look like. And the people saying this are not random internet commentators. This is coming from royal insiders, from highly respected royal authors, from people who have known William personally for years, and from one of the most connected, most plugged-in royal journalists operating right now, Dan Wootton, who has just dropped details so specific, so damning for Harry, and so revealing about where William actually stands in 2026, that the entire royal conversation has shifted overnight. Welcome back to the Marquee Report. I am your host, and today we are breaking down every explosive detail from Dan Wootton's latest royal bombshell. Because this story has everything. William's Cold War with Harry that has now gone completely silent, and why silence is actually more brutal than anger. The growing calls to keep Archie and Lilibet away from the Wales children. What Tina Brown, who used to be PRO Harry and Meghan, is now saying about the Sussex situation. The Daily Mail's absolutely disgusting attack on Catherine that has the royal world furious. Queen Camilla's stunning J.K. Rowling moment. And King Charles quietly rewriting his own job description in a way that has constitutional lawyers absolutely losing their minds. We are getting into all of it. Stay with me from start to finish. Let's start with the story that has generated the most conversation this week. Because the calls to keep Archie and Lilibet away from George, Charlotte, and Louis are getting louder. And what makes this particularly interesting is where these calls are coming from. Americans. Specifically, American royal commentators and YouTube creators who have been following the Sussex situation closely and are now saying what a lot of people have been thinking but were too polite to say directly. One royal YouTube commentator, someone Dan Wootton describes as a brilliant royal YouTube sensation whose takes he genuinely respects, put it in the most unfiltered terms possible. The argument being made is essentially this.
Yes, it would be nice. I was saying it's nice for them to get to know each other, but it's been so long and you don't know if Archie and Lily are civilized, right? They might eat with their toes and, pick things up with their feet. I don't know what's been going on because they've been living on the frickin' compound like children of the corn and like the hills have eyes and we never hear from them. We don't know anything about Archie and Lilibet. Like, have they had their shots? That might be better that they hadn't. But what's going on? We don't know. You might not want your kids to play with them because they've been living on the compound. They might not be socialized. So I understand saying George, Charlotte, and Louis, they have busy schedules. Guess what? Our kids are real royalty and they have a lot going on this summer. They have better things to do than to hang out with your children. And if you wanted your kids to be friends with ours and with the cousins, you wouldn't have run off to the US and trashed our whole family.
We do not know anything about how Archie and Lilibet have been raised. We do not know what their social environment looks like. We do not know what values they have been raised with, or what they have been told about their British royal relatives. They have been living in what one commentator called the Montecito compound, almost entirely isolated from their extended family, for years now. and nobody outside that compound has any real visibility into what their day-to-day life actually looks like. And when you factor in everything Harry and Meghan have said publicly about William and Catherine, the accusations, the interview claims, the book revelations, it raises a genuinely serious question. What have Archie and Lilibet been told about their uncle and aunt? What version of the Wales family have they grown up hearing about? Royal biographer Angela Levin, who knows this family extraordinarily well, was direct about it. She said it would be an absolute disaster to allow that kind of unsupervised interaction. Not because Archie and Lilibet are bad children, but because they have simply not been raised the same way. They have not had the same preparation, the same structure, the same framework that George, Charlotte, and Louis have been raised within. And Catherine, who is by every account a deeply warm, deeply thoughtful, deeply family-oriented person, would be the first to want to extend grace and connection. But according to insiders, even she understands that this particular situation requires more than warmth and good intentions. It requires careful, serious consideration of what is actually in the best interests of her children. William's position is reportedly even clearer, and the reasons for it are deeply personal. Now let's talk about where William and Harry actually stand right now, because the language being used by people close to William has shifted dramatically. And that shift tells you everything. It used to be described as a feud, a rift, a family dispute, a breakdown in brotherly communication. All of those words imply something active, something ongoing, something that might still be repaired with the right conversation at the right moment. Tina Brown, the highly respected royal author, former editor of Vanity Fair, and someone who was for a very long time genuinely PRO Harry and Meghan, has now turned. And the phrase she is using is not feud, it is not rift, it is not dispute, it is Cold War, and she describes Harry as someone who has genuinely not grasped the severity of what has happened. She writes of him as if he has learned nothing in the last 6 years of battling with the institution, making the same mistakes, rushing the same premature announcements, operating on the same magical thinking that has defined every Sussex decision since Mexit in January 2020. But here is the detail from Tina Brown that landed hardest. The detail that reveals just how far things have actually gone between the brothers. An old friend of William shared with her that for years, whenever William spent time with close friends, Harry's name came up constantly. The sense of betrayal, the hurt, the anger. It was a constant theme. William carried it. You could feel it in conversations. And then recently, during a long conversation with the same friend, Harry's name never came up once. Not once. In an entire long conversation. 0 mentions. That is not anger anymore. That is not hurt. That is not even resentment. That is something far colder and far more permanent. That is someone who has processed the loss and moved on. Someone for whom the chapter has genuinely closed, not slammed shut in fury, but quietly, finally, permanently turned. Dan Wooten puts it perfectly. William is not interested in playing out the constant back and forth in the media anymore. He is exhausted by it. He has his wife. He has his children. He has his future. And Harry's name barely registers in that life anymore. And according to Angela Levin, the reason William will never fully forgive Harry goes beyond the public statements and the book revelations. It goes to something deeply personal. Harry made vulgar comments about Catherine, about William's wife, the woman William loves, the woman who, according to those close to him, helped him understand what it actually means to be a husband and a father in ways his own childhood never showed him. William has never forgotten that, and he never will. Here is the part of Tina Brown's reporting that is genuinely heartbreaking, even for people who have been critical of Harry's choices. Because what she describes is a man who has finally realized, too late, exactly what he gave up and exactly what he actually wants. Tina Brown writes that what Harry genuinely does well, what he is actually suited for, is what he was born to do and then rejected. Unlike Meghan, he does not really want to be a Hollywood hotshot or an amorphous influencer in designer clothes. As a former employee told Brown, he just wants to do public service and be paid for it, which is essentially the definition of being a working member of the monarchy. He misses his army friends, his country-based circle, the rugged, grounded world that existed before Montecito. He misses his father, who by all accounts desperately wants to reconcile with his younger son. And according to sources close to him, he very much misses William, because William is the only other person on earth who knows what it was to be Diana's son, who carries that specific grief and that specific experience. And the invitation to Peter Phillips's wedding, Princess Anne's son, a man who played a genuinely important role supporting Harry at Balmoral when Diana died, never came. No invite, no inclusion. The family has moved on in the most concrete, most social, most visible way possible. Too late. That is the verdict Tina Brown delivers. And it is brutal, precisely because it is delivered without anger. Just clarity. Now let's talk about something that has the royal world absolutely furious this week. Because the Daily Mail published something so deeply inappropriate that even people who rarely agree on royal matters are united in disgust. A columnist published a piece essentially demanding that Catherine publicly reveal what type of cancer she has. The argument being that she has a platform, she has a following, and she should use it to speak out about her specific diagnosis for the benefit of others. The response was immediate and overwhelming. One commentator said, and this went massively viral, "This is a new low for the Daily Mail. Leave her alone. Are you going to release the medical details of your staff? If not, shut up." Angela Levin, who has spent years covering this family and who does not hold back when criticism is deserved, called it appalling. She said it was enough for Catherine to have had cancer. It was brave of her to speak about it at all, and demanding that she provide specific medical details to satisfy public curiosity is not journalism. It is cruelty dressed up as advocacy. And Dan Wooten made a point worth sitting with. Catherine has already had her medical records stolen. She has been through an enormous amount in terms of her privacy being violated around her health. The idea that a mainstream national newspaper then adds to that violation by publicly demanding more disclosure, more detail, more of her most private medical information is genuinely revolting. Catherine is climbing mountains. She is raising 3 remarkable children. She looks beautiful and strong and is carrying her responsibilities with extraordinary grace. And certain sections of the media cannot let her have that without trying to tear it apart. It is disgraceful, and it deserved every single word of the backlash it received. Now here is a moment that Dan Wooten spent time praising this week, and genuinely, I think it deserves the attention. Queen Camilla met with J.K. Rowling at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh this week. The official announcement was warm and straightforward, a shared passion for books, a commitment to children reading for pleasure, a discussion about ensuring young people have access to literature. But the subtext, the meaning underneath the official language, was unmistakable to anyone paying attention. J.K. Rowling has become one of the most controversial public figures in the English-speaking world. Not because of her books, but because of her very clear, very public, very uncompromising position on biological sex and the protection of women's spaces. She has lost Hollywood relationships. She has been attacked by actors she made famous. She has paid an enormous personal and professional price for refusing to back down from a position that an increasing number of ordinary people actually quietly agree with. And Queen Camilla, without making a political speech, without issuing a statement, without entering a debate, simply stood next to her, shook her hand, smiled for the camera, and let the image speak. In royal terms, that is not nothing. That is a deliberate choice. And it sent a message to every single person watching, particularly those Hollywood voices who have been loudest in condemning Rowling. that the institution of the British monarchy is not going to pretend J.K. Rowling is a person to be avoided or condemned. Dan Wooten, who has been critical of Camilla at various points, gave her genuine credit for this moment. And he was right to. And then there is the story that arguably deserved the biggest headlines of the week, and instead got buried in the noise of everything else happening. King Charles has quietly changed his official title description. Gone is the centuries-old framing of Defender of the Faith, a title dating back to King Henry V in 1521, and in its place is new language describing Charles as someone who protects the space for faith within the multi-faith nation. This was slipped into the annual Sovereign Grant Report without a major public announcement, without a constitutional debate, without parliamentary discussion. Just new words, new framing, a new definition of what the monarch is and does, quietly inserted into a financial document. The reaction from constitutional lawyers, religious commentators, and historians has been fierce. One senior lawyer put it directly: "You cannot change the Constitution through words in the Sovereign Grant Report. He is defender of the faith. Those are his obligations, his duty. A king who will not do his duty is no king." The outrage is real. The legal concerns are legitimate, and the fact that this was introduced so quietly, without proper debate, is exactly the kind of thing that deserves serious public scrutiny rather than being buried beneath Sussex headlines and wedding gossip. Whether you agree with the change or not, the process matters. Constitutional traditions are not meant to be updated through annual reports. William and Catherine keeping Archie and Lilibet at arm's length. Harry's name not even coming up in William's conversations anymore. Tina Brown, once a Sussex supporter, calling this a Cold War. The Daily Mail demanding Catherine's cancer details. Queen Camilla standing with J.K. Rowling. And King Charles quietly rewriting centuries of constitutional tradition in a financial document nobody was supposed to scrutinize. Dan Wooten dropped all of this in 1 week, and every single story connects back to the same central truth about the British royal family in 2026. The decisions being made right now, quietly, deliberately, firmly, are permanent. The Sussex chapter is closing, the Wales chapter is opening, and the institution is moving forward with or without those who chose to walk away from it. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think William and Catherine are right to keep distance from Archie and Lilibet? Is it too late for Harry? And what do you make of King Charles changing his title? I want every single take you have got. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you in the next one at the Marquee Report.